welcome to Canyon Church, and thanks so much for joining us online today. We are starting a brand new series with our lead pastor, Andrew Powell, and it is called Love, Dates, and Heartbreaks, and it's all about relationships. It's going to be an excellent series, and we are so happy to have you joining us today. If this is your first time with us, we want you to know our mission here at Canyons is to lead people into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ. And one way we're doing that right now is through groups. So if you're interested in signing up for a small group, get a hold of us either on our website, canyonchurch.net, or connect with us on social media, and we'd be happy to get you into a group. We have online groups and also in-person groups. So whatever you're most comfortable with, we want to meet you there. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are so happy to have you. We hope you enjoy today's message.
Enjoy the show.
I'm so excited about this series that we're about to start. In fact, you're jumping in on the very front end, which is great. This whole series is about relationships. If you couldn't figure that out by now, it's all about relationships. So regardless of whether you have never been in a relationship, but have always wanted to be, have been in a lot of relationships, probably too many relationships, and you're like, man, I don't know if this is working out for me or not. Or you're just oblivious, like, man, relationships, they're so much fun, which is great. You should have fun in relationships. Regardless of where you're at, if you are in your long-term forever relationship right now, or maybe you thought you were and that ended a while back. Regardless of where you're at, this series is for you, because we all have relationships. Even if you've sworn off relationships as a whole, you're like, you know what, I'm done with that. I'm done with that part of my life. I'm just going to be me from now on, and I don't have to worry about that other thing. Well, even for you, you still have relationships with other people around you. You're not isolated completely in this world, and there's aspects of this conversation that are going to help you become more like Jesus, and help you be able to treat and love others the way that Jesus did. So I think that there's something for everybody in this, and I'm really excited to be able to share it with you. Now, to get started off, there's this thing that's happened in my life. I don't know why. Maybe it's not just me. Maybe it's everybody. But seems like I've always had a self-proclaimed people watcher in my life. Anybody of you, like any of you, a people watcher yourself, or you have those people in your life, you can raise your hand. It's kind of fun. It's also kind of awkward. I'll admit there's been binoculars involved before, and it's like, well, do we need to be that? I mean, you can see with your naked eye. You don't need binoculars right now, and they see you have binoculars looking at them. Is that, you comfortable with that? That's just okay, I guess we're going to go, I guess that's what we're doing now. Anyway, the thing about watching people is you can learn a lot. And the thing about my seat that I sit in, and the seat that I've sat in for a long time in ministry, is you get to watch it, a front row seat to how people work through their relationships. And unfortunately, this is what I've experienced, that watching people make relationship decisions that undermine their relationships. And time again, over and over. It's just like watching someone hurt themselves, right? And watching someone hurt the thing that they care about the most or a lot. And it's painful to watch to start off with, but if there's anything that happens, I watch it, and then I start to ask these questions. Have you thought that out? Have you really thought that out? I don't actually ask them this because typically this is offensive, but this is what I think. Have you thought that out? And of course I answer it, no, you haven't, or you haven't thought it out enough. If that's the decision that you've made, you haven't spent enough time on the thinking part of it. I ask this question. Have you seen that work out for anybody else? I mean, have you noticed anybody else do this thing and actually have it work out for them? And again, that's one of those, like, I can answer the question. Maybe you've seen it, but it's probably not on the model relationship that you want to have. Like, the healthiest relationships aren't making that choice. Maybe some of your peers or some other people that you hang out with are making that choice, but that doesn't mean that it's the best choice, right? You know, this is another popular question that I ask in my head without actually verbalizing. This is a great opportunity for me just in this series because I get to verbalize these things, not to anyone in specific, but the things that have been in my mind for a long time. Has no one warned you? And of course, the answer for me is, yeah, I'm pretty sure I talked about that. Did you not listen? Did you not think I was serious when we were talking about this? You know, in that one series a while ago, or in that other series, or when we had that conversation at coffee, or whatever it might have been. Did you not think I was serious when I warned you about that? When I said, hey, just be careful of this aspect of your life or of relationships as a whole. Because here's what I know, that, and especially if you're a younger person right now, if you're a younger person and your mentality is you can date anyone, anytime, anywhere, anyhow you want, because you're just like, I'm young and I'm enjoying life and this is going to be fun, and you just go from person to person to person. And if that's you, here's what I can tell you right now. I can tell you that you are hurting you. And it might not feel like you're like, no. You don't understand. Like, I'm just having fun. This is what relationships are all about, right? They're supposed to be fun and I'm having fun. So it's not a big deal. It may not feel like a big deal right now, but in 5 years from now and in 10 years from now, it gets to be a bigger and bigger deal because you are laying the foundation for relationships to come. And not only are you hurting yourself, you're hurting others. You're hurting others. The people that you're in a relationship right now, if your mentality is just to whoever, whenever, wherever, however, if that's just you from person to person to person to person, if that's what you're walking out right now, you're hurting all of those other people. And in fact, you're not only hurting all of those other people, you're hurting the future spouse that you will have. Like, the choices that you're making now work their way into that relationship as well. And that is hard because that makes us, it tempts us into becoming a liar for life. That's what that can make us, because eventually you're going to have a conversation with that significant other where you're like, I think this is the one, this is the person I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And if that's you, that's great. But you're gonna be tempted in those moments when they ask you about your previous relationships and your experiences. You're gonna be tempted to lie, or at least not tell the full truth, and not be fully honest with them. And if that's you, you're gonna be tempted to be a liar for life. And not only that, probably eventually you're gonna have some kids, and your kids are going to be approaching the age that you were at when you started to date, and they're gonna ask you some questions. Mom, Dad, what was it like for you? What was your experience? Did you ever try that? Did you ever do that? What did you do? What were your values? And I'm just going to tell you right now, in that moment, you will be tempted to be a liar. You will be tempted to not want to tell the full truth. Right? So I'm just trying to help you out. Don't be a liar for life. Don't set yourself up where you're going to want to change your story. Something else that you're going to want to make sure that you're not. Someone else's regret. Someone else's regret. Because when you walk through relationships, like you walk through doorways, just in and out, just whatever you feel like at any moment, when you do that, you're setting yourself up to be a liar, and you're setting yourself up also to be someone's regret, because they're going to have to tell their story to someone else too. And I hope that the way that you treat other people in your relationships now doesn't set you up to be someone's regret story. When someone, they probably are going to have to tell their story to someone, their future spouse, to their kids. And the story that you are experiencing right now will be their story then. And it's going to either be something of, I learned a lot, it was great, or it's going to be, I wish I hadn't. I wish I hadn't. So for me as a pastor, this is what I want for you. I want to protect you. I want to help you before you become someone's regret. before you are tempted to be a liar for life, that we alter, that we change, that we bring to light the full conversation about relationships ahead of time. Because if you're a young man, this is what I'm going to tell you. The way that you treat your dates, if you have a younger sibling, a younger sister, and someone treated your dates the way that you do, you'd probably want to have some conversations with those young men, wouldn't you? I'm just asking, because if that's you, if that's the spot that you're at, if you honestly evaluate it, if someone treated my younger sister the way that I treat my dates, I wouldn't like that. Then here's what I'm going to tell you. Don't be a hypocrite. Don't be a hypocrite. Because if you don't like what someone else would do that you're currently doing, that makes you a hypocrite. So don't do that. Now, let me speak to the young ladies real quick. My heart for you is that you would not be a commodity. Don't allow yourself to be treated like a commodity, like somebody's thing that they purchase, someone else's thing that they use, and someone else's thing that they eventually discard. Don't allow yourself to be treated that way. And if someone is treating you that way right now, then you need to consider exiting that relationship. Right? If you're dating and you're like, I don't know if this guy's treating me the way that I think I should be treated, get out. Don't stay in a relationship where you're being treated like a commodity. Now, today we're going to be talking about a couple of different myths. These myths are perpetuated within our society, within our world today, and I'm not going to bang and be all angry and upset with society, but I'm going to say that these myths that we look at are perpetuated by our society. And so they become confusing when the rubber meets the road in relationships, because what we once thought is not really what we experience or what we expect anymore in relationships. It's different, right? The first myth is this. It's the right person myth. This myth is not that there's a singular right person out there for you. That's not what this is about, because, let's be honest, there's 7 billion people on the planet right now. I think you have some odds that you might find somebody. In fact, there might be multiple somebodies, and my personal take is that if you choose somebody, then that becomes your right person, right? That's not what this myth is about. This myth is actually that once you meet the right person, everything will be all right. Once you meet the right person, that then everything will be all right. And that regardless of what's been in your past and what you've done and what you're currently doing right now, that all of that gets removed and erased, and it doesn't stick with you once you meet the right person, because then Prince Charming shows up and it all goes away. It all just melts off into the distant past, and it doesn't stick to you. Unfortunately, that's not how this works. And some of you even right now, you're like, man, I thought I married the right person, but I thought I chose the right person, but I'm not so sure right now, because everything's not all right in the relationship. It's difficult. It's challenging. I'm not happy all the time anymore. So if everything's not all right, then they must not have been the actual right. And we start to have this thought that you must have chosen the wrong right person. Is that where you're at right now? Is that how you feel? Is that what you're contemplating? And even if you're in that spot right now, you're evaluating that spot. You're like, I don't know, this doesn't quite feel as easy. This doesn't quite feel so comfortable. This isn't quite what I thought it would be. And if you think that you might have chosen the wrong right person, that right now you might actually be looking for the next right person. Your eyes are open. You're like, I'm with this person, but I'm looking because there might be somebody else that's out there that's going to be better for me. It's going to be a better fit. It's going to be, everything's going to be all right once I find them. And this is the principle. This is the idea, the understanding that society, that our world tells us through entertainment and through, media, and over it reinforces this idea that once I find them, everything will be fine. Once I find them, that everything will be fine. But there's so much more. There is so much more to a satisfying relationship than finding or being found. There is so much more to that. And part of that more, it's not very marketable. It's not what entertainment wants to have in movies or TV or in books or anything like that, because it's boring. right? When a relationship is healthy and it's working properly, there's not a lot of excitement surrounding it. There's not a lot of drama, and that's what entertainment's all about, right? Drama. That's what we want. But in our relationships, that's not what we want. We shouldn't live our relationships out like it's to entertain everybody around us, right? So this is the tension, and part of that more is actually recognizing that you can't just promise your way in to making it right. You can't just promise your way in, and that's actually what myth number 2 is. Myth number 2 is the promise myth, and this is the simple reality that a promise replaces the need for preparation. A promise replaces the need for preparation. And I know this is really simple. I know that this is not a difficult concept to understand. But we think that if we promise or we commit or we vow, and you're like, wait, hold on, you use vows at weddings. Yeah, that's kind of the point that I'm making. You can't vow your way in to being the right person. A promise cannot possibly replace the need for preparation. And that's what we bump up against often, is that we have lived our lives with these promises like, oh no, I'm going to do what I need to do now, but eventually I'll just promise, I'll just commit, I'll just promise, and it'll be fine then. At that point, it'll just be fine because I'll just promise that I'm going to do that, which is different than what I've done in the past. But moving forward, I'm not going to do that anymore. That habit, that thing, that way that I treat you, the way that I talk to you, all those things, once I promise, once I vow, then that I'm just going to change. I'm just going to change me. I'm just going to change my natural pattern that I've been in, that I've built up in, that foundation of relationships and the way that I navigate them. All that's going to change once I promise. And that sounds, when I say it that way, it probably sounds a little ridiculous. But I don't know if you played sports. If you've ever played sports, you understand this pretty clearly. You can't promise and replace practice with a promise. It would be like me playing basketball and my coach pulling me over and saying, okay, we've been running lines. This is at the end of the practice. I don't know if your coaches were like this, but always conditioning at the end of practice. And then they'd make you shoot free throws until until they made enough free throws, then they'd stop running. But, it'd be like the coach pulling me over and saying, okay, Andrew, we've been running for a while. You're going to shoot 2 more free throws. And if you make them, we're done running for the day. But if you miss either of them, then we're going to have to continue on. And it'd be like me looking at my coach and saying, oh, thank goodness, coach. Thank goodness you asked me, because I'm just going to promise to you, I'm just going to tell you, that in the game I'll make them. I don't even need to shoot these right now. I don't need to practice right now. I don't need to have that pressure or tension on me right now, because when I'm in the game, I'm golden. Like I've got it. I promise, coach. I'll make them in the game. No worries, no doubts, no hesitations. I'll get it. It'll be fine. It doesn't work that way, does it? And it doesn't work that way in relationships either. You don't promise to win games. You prepare to win. You prepare to win. You have to put the time, the energy, the effort, the intentionality behind it in order to make progress, so that when you are in the moment that you've been practicing for, that preparation pays off. It's not about a promise. It's about preparation. And the unfortunate part is that we get this confused, and we don't see this in entertainment. We see that everything changes once we get someone to say, okay, I give up. Sometimes that's how it is. Or, okay, I commit, I vow, let's just get to the wedding, it'll be fine. But unfortunately, that's not how life works, is it? And some of you have been in the seat, some of you have sat in this for a while now, that you've had someone tell you, I do, but you've recognized that I do doesn't mean that you can. Right? Because a promise doesn't equate to capability. Right? All a promise does is hold you accountable. And if you promise making yourself accountable, but you're not able to follow through, man, that's frustrating for everybody involved. In fact, when you are accountable but not capable, you'll be miserable. You'll be miserable. And some of you right now in your relationships, you're like, that might be, I wouldn't say that out loud, but that might be what I'm struggling with, is I feel like this is miserable right now. Well, this might be exactly what you're experiencing and going through. that someone has promised, making them accountable, but yet they're not capable of what they've promised, which makes everybody involved, the two that are in the relationship, if there's kids involved, the family surrounding it, the friends surrounding it, it makes everybody around it miserable, right? It makes it unsafe, uncomfortable. No one wants to be in that spot. So this is going to be really, really simple. This is not a stretch of the imagination. It's not like, it's very simple. It's this truth though. If you aren't preparing, you won't be prepared. Did we all get that? If you aren't preparing right now, you won't be prepared later on. It's true of sports. It's true of relationships. If you aren't preparing, you won't be prepared. A simple illustration about this and the frustration of being accountable and not being capable and getting miserable about it. When I was 15, just turned 15, I went in with my dad to get my driver's permit in Oregon. So day of my birthday, on the day, is early January, we show up. My dad asked me before we left the house, hey, what car do you want to take? Because you can drive home if you would like to. You could drive home, pick out the vehicle that you want to take home. We had a couple cars, and at the time we had a Toyota pickup, and it was a manual. And I said, well, I want to drive the truck home. I think that, that's the vehicle that I want to drive anyway. So of course I want to drive the truck. So in our household, this is just FYI for your information, when we grew up, the way that I was raised is if you didn't have a permit, you didn't drive. So I had zero practicing. I'd never been like, hey, my dad pulled me into like a vacant lot and said, okay, we're going to work on this. I never had that experience. So he just after I aced the test, he goes, all right, congratulations, throws me the keys. We get in the truck and I try to start and back up and I kill it. And I we talked it through. I had the concept understanding exactly how to use the clutch and all of it. I had the whole concept understood. But context doesn't equate to experience all the time. And so we just gradually crept our way forward and closer to the home. And I maybe made it, maybe just a couple miles. And finally I pulled over and I just told my dad, I said, I can't do this. I know I told you that I wanted to drive home. I know I told you that I wanted to drive the truck, but I can't do it. And I had to humble myself, and it wasn't a fun moment. I know I was frustrated, and I had to get out, walk around to the passenger side like I'd always ridden in, and sat back down on that seat. Not the seat that I wanted to be in, but the seat that I was capable of at that moment. Right? That's the way it is. That's the way it is learning how to drive a manual. That's the way it is in relationships. That's the way it is in your workplace. If you are accountable but not capable, you'll be miserable. So right now, it's so critical, so important. There's never a bad moment to put in more preparation for the things that we value the most in life. So put in the preparation now. That's what we're going to be talking about. The good news is that if you listen to what we talk about and if you actually implement some of the stuff, you start to follow Jesus. And when you follow Jesus, we say this often, that following Jesus will make life better and make you better at life. So this is giving you a heads up. If you're following Jesus, you're going to start moving in this direction anyway. And there's a great opportunity for you. And the way that we're going to talk about this, though, is that we have to become the kind of person. We got to become the kind of person, not because we're not there yet. Right? If we're preparing to become something. So we're preparing to become the kind of person, and not just any kind of person, but the kind of person the person you're looking for is looking for. Do you get lost in the weeds there? Become the kind of person the person that you are looking for is actually looking for. So maybe put it in a question form. Are you the person you're looking for is looking for? Is that true of you? Is that true of you right now? Are you the type of person, the kind of person that the person you're looking for is looking for? I mean, it's kind of, put it this way. If you were fishing and you wanted to catch a specific kind of fish and you recognize that that's the fish that you're after, you should put the same bait on your hook that you would be attracted to. So if if you're thinking about your future spouse and the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with, and your eyes are open, and you're kind of looking around, if you would describe that person as like patient and kind and generous and, gracious and all those types of things, are you becoming that type of person? Because that's the type of person that person will be looking for as well. Right? So this is the type of person we have to become is more important than looking and finding. It's the opportunity. This is how we prepare for someone else. Maybe if you're married and you've been in this for a long time, or you just started out, regardless, you're in your long-term committed relationship. Maybe it's a different question that you should ask. Are you still the person they were looking for? All those years ago, are you still the person they were looking for? Or have you allowed life and a job, kids, financial, struggle and stress? Have you allowed other things, hobbies and just exhaustion? Have you allowed other things to work its way in to be to the point that you've actually become a different person? Or are you still the person they were looking for? Now Jesus he steps down into history to provide for us a new relational paradigm. And he shows us this, and we're going to be looking through this. And especially this morning, we're going to look through exactly what relational paradigm he introduced in our world. And in this context, he's talking to the 12 disciples. These are the men that followed him around. They were the closest to him. He asked them to follow him. A lot of them are actually who we got the gospel accounts from, the firsthand eyewitness accounts. They wrote down what they experienced and what they saw, what they heard. And those are, that's how we got the gospels. That's how we got these, from eyewitness accounts. So Jesus is speaking to these men. And this is what he says. We're going to look in John chapter 15, verse 1. He says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. Now Jesus is the king. He's the king of these word pictures and these illustrations. So he says, I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit. Now, this is like, okay, well, exactly. Right, whenever the disciples were listening to Jesus, they're like, who am I in this story? Who is he? He obviously told them that right away. He is the true vine. God the Father is the gardener. So God the Father cuts off the branches that bear no fruit, because that's what you do. That's what you do as a gardener. And he continues on, and he says this, while every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes so that it will be even more fruitful. Right? This is gardening 101. This is what you do. If something is not producing fruit that's supposed to be, then you cut it off. And if something is producing fruit, then you can trim it up. You can actually prune it so it'll be even more fruitful, and you'll have even a greater harvest from it. Now, is there a branch that he's describing in this illustration that doesn't get worked on? No. And that's true of life. Throughout life, every single one of us is going to have to get worked on. And there's going to be seasons where we feel like we're being pruned. There's seasons that are going to be painful and difficult to walk through. But some of those lead to more fruit and growth in us. So he continues to talk, and he says, remain in me as I also remain in you. Continuing on, no branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Again, this is all very simple. No branch, you can't have a branch that just bears fruit on its own. It's like, oh, hey, this branch just oddly started to bear fruit. It's not connected to a vine, it just started bearing fruit on its own. No, this is a simple principle. The fruit that you bear comes from the vine itself. The vine is where you gain life. It protects you. It's what dictates what type of fruit that you're bearing. The vine is the source of all of that. And real quick, if you're asking the question like, well, what exactly is fruit? What is this fruit that we're talking about? This is the end result. This is the outcome of our choices and our decisions. All of us have fruit, right? All of us bear fruit of some type. The choices that you make eventually bear fruit. And the question is it good fruit? Because not all of it's good fruit. So if you remain in Jesus and he in you, then you're going to be bearing fruit. He says, no branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. He continues on, neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. That is the process. That is how you bear fruit that is like Jesus. If you want to be like Jesus, you have to remain connected to Jesus. If you want to have the fruit that he had when you look through the Gospels and the type of person that he was, the way that he loved other people, the way that he treated other people, if that's the type of person you want to become, then you have to be like him. You remain connected. You follow him is another word that you could use there. Now he continues on in verse 5. He says, I am the vine. Just to be clear, I am the vine. He already told us that. You are the branches. If you haven't figured that out yet, disciples, if you haven't figured that out, John, if you haven't figured that out, Peter, if you haven't figured that out, you are the branches. It's you. You guys are the branches. And if you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. But apart from me, you can do nothing. See, if you want to be like me, but you disconnect from me, you're not going to be able to do it. You're not going to be able to do or become or bear the fruit that you want to unless you follow me. This is the way to do it. Jesus is telling us how to connect with God the Father. It's through him. And God works on us in order that we can actually remain connected. Remain in is the way that Jesus puts it, to Jesus. And by doing that, we remain connected to the true vine and within the realm and within the plans that the Father, the gardener, has for us. The purpose of us as a whole, the purpose from the gardener, is that we would bear much fruit. So Jesus is explaining to everybody, this is how you do this. This is the way that you do this. And he continues on. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. So I'm sure at this point in time, before he says that, at this point in time, the disciples are kind of looking at each other like, man, I've got that like brain cramping thing going on. Like I don't know what you're talking about yet. I'm not sure I've landed all the way with you, Jesus. Can you explain it a little bit more? Can you clear away the fog for me a little? So he gets more specific. Well, as the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Now remain in my love. Remain in my love. And even this, they're like, what does this mean? What does it mean to remain in your love? What does that have to do? Like, as the Father has loved you, then you love us and remain in my love. What are we talking about here, Jesus? And in verse 10, he says, he starts to get very clear, very straight with them. He says, if you keep my commands, you will remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love. To which we go, okay. Now I got it. That cleared it up. Okay, this is just that list. This is just the do's and don'ts that I've always heard about church or I've always experienced. Like, don't do that and do that. Make sure you don't do that. Make sure you do that. It's just a list. Okay, got it. Got it, Jesus, we're good. It's just the do's and don'ts. Hold on. Before you disconnect, before you back up, before you just stop listening, let Jesus explain himself. Let him clarify a little bit more. He says, my command is this. Well, hold on. I thought you were talking about a list. I thought it was a multiple. This is singular. And Jesus would say, yeah, it's singular. There's one thing. He says, my command is this. Love each other. Wait, hold on. Jesus, I thought we were talking about how we connect to God and how we stay connected to you. This doesn't. What is loving each other? What does that have to do with our relationship with God? What does that have to do with God? How we treat each other, well, Jesus says, love each other. As I. Oh yeah, because we're supposed to take our cue from Jesus. That's who we follow. That, when we remain in the true vine, when we remain connected to the true vine, we are following his lead. So Jesus says, this is what I've done. As I have loved you, I've given you the example. I've showed you how to do this. My command is that you would love each other as I have loved you. In this type of love that Jesus talked about, this is the sacrificial type of love that they experienced, him washing their feet and serving them and humbling himself before them. They knew that the type of love that he expressed was different. Right? We're always taught the golden rule, treat others the way that you want to be treated. Jesus elevates that to the platinum rule. Not just how you want to be treated, treat others the way that I have treated you, the way that Jesus has loved you. That's how you're supposed to treat other people. And then Jesus, a few days later, gives them the ultimate example, living out loud right in front of them. And the example is so poignant, it's so powerful, it takes their breath away because it took his breath away. That's how we're to love other people. That's how we are to love those around us, the way that Jesus loved us first. Now, the vine allows God's love to move through you to others. But this is the connection. That Jesus, following Jesus, allows God's love to move through you to others. And that's true in our relationships, whether it's our significant other, our forever marriage, or if this is the person that we meet for the first time. We are to treat others the way that Jesus treated us and loved us first. This is actually very clearly, this is the way, this is how you become a person worth looking for. And not only that, this is how you become a person worth staying for. This is how you remain committed and remain the person and continue to become the person. Not just worth looking for, but a person worth staying for the rest of your lives. That's how you do it. By treating others the way that Jesus treated you, by becoming that type of person that Jesus wants you to become. Because ultimately, this is what we know. The kind of person Jesus leads his followers to become is the kind of person we are all ultimately looking for and want to become. If you would describe the type of person, you're the best version of you, regardless of what you think about Jesus or not. If you would describe the best version of you, it is the type of person that Jesus is trying to lead you into becoming. Because his heart is that you'd become the best version of yourself. The person that he placed in you, the potential that he placed in you, the potential to love other people even better than you think you can, with more margin, with more patience, with more grace, with more mercy, with more forgiveness, with more gratitude. And the list goes on and on and on. That's the type of person that God wants you to become, that Jesus wants you to become. The person that is worth looking for, a person that is worth staying for as well. Now, if you've listened to this morning, you're like, okay, you boil it down to one thing and it's all about love. And that seems so just very broad, open-ended. It also seems very, I don't know if you want to use the word soft. It's like, everybody just love each other. We'll all be okay. Stick around next week. The next episode, part 2 of this series, we're going to get into the fine print. And the fine print is finding and keeping, no losing, less weeping. Right? I think we could all hope for less weeping in our life. But this is the fine print of how you do this. The fine print starts next week. So don't miss our next message in this series. I'm going to leave you with some discussion questions. These questions are great for you to be able to discuss this with somebody else, or just wrestle with on your own, or with a small group, or whoever you want to have a conversation with. These are some good questions just to kind of continue on this discussion, this conversation that we've had so far. Question number 1, what are or were the top 3 things you are or were looking for? Do you remember? Do you remember what those are? Number 2, how do you measure up to those 3 things? How do you yourself? Not like how do you evaluate someone, but if you were to evaluate someone on those 3 things, how do you evaluate yourself on those 3 things? How are you doing in there? Now, and this, I'm just going to give you a heads up. Number 3 is a doozy. It's a big one. List 3 things that come to mind when you think about Jesus' love for you. So just Three things that come to mind when you think about Jesus' love for you. What would it look like to extend those same three things to someone else? That's hard. It's great. It's good. It's healthy. It's how you become the person that you're looking for is looking for. That's how you stay. That's how you remain committed. That's how you stay the person that you committed to first commits to you. That's how you stay in that type of relationship and stay together, by continuing to become, continuing to work on the person that you know is more and more like Jesus. I'm going to pray, and in just a moment we're going to have some worship with our North Point Connecting partners and band this today, and then we'll finish out. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for everything that you do for us. God, I pray that we would be able to do the work that we need to do today, right now. That we would do the preparation needed, that we would take the focus not on our moment today, but on the moments tomorrow and in our future. And that we would put the work in order to be prepared for those relationships ahead. And if we're in the marriage relationship right now, if we're in the long-term relationship right now, God, I pray that we would evaluate, are we still the person? Are we still that same person? Or have we deviated? Have we lost track? Or maybe we never were, but now is the time to move forward. Now is the time to take a step. And I pray that you would give us the courage and the boldness to be proactive, to do something about what we've just heard today. God, I thank you that regardless of where we're at, you have given us the example. You've already showed us exactly how to do this. And God, I pray that we would follow you, that we would follow suit, that we would remain in you, that we would remain connected to you and live our lives out the way that you lived yours out, by sacrificing and loving other people. God, we thank you for everything that you do for us. In your name I pray. Amen.
Just one You are here, moving in our midst. We worship you, oh, worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you, yes, I worship you, yes. You are here, you're moving in our midst, and I worship you. I worship you. You are here, you're working in this place, and I worship you, yes, I worship you, yes, 'cause you are the way maker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are. Sing that again. You are the way maker, miracle worker, promise keeper, the light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, and you are here. You're touching every heart, and I worship you. Yes, I worship you. Yes, you are here, you're healing every heart. I worship you, I worship don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop, sing it out. Even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. And even when I don't see it, you're working. And even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop working. And even when I don't see it, you're working. And even when I can't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. You never stop, Waymaker, miracle worker, my promise keeper, the light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Yes, that is who you are. Yes, oh, that is who you are. We can trust you. It's who you are. Yes, it's who you are. And that is who you are. I see you move the mountain, and I believe I see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I see you do it again. I see you move the mountain, and I believe I see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I see you do it again. I see you move the mountain, and I believe I see you do it again. Made a way where there was no way. I believe I see you do it again. I see you do it promise still stands. Great is your faithfulness, your faithfulness. I'm still in your hands. This is my confidence. You never fail me, yeah, and you never will, God. Never failed me, yeah. Oh, you never will, God.
Father, I pray that we know that. I pray that that is evident in every one of our lives, watching on stage right now. I pray that you get it into their minds that you have not failed yet, and this ain't the time to start. We trust you, God, because we've seen you do it with so many others. We know you can do it again for us. In the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost's name, we stand in expectation of you right now. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, thank you for being here with us today. I hope that that was applicable. I hope that you got something out of it. I hope that it was enjoyable, encouraging, challenging, and I hope you do something about it. And one of those things that you can do is coming back for the next part of this series, part 2 of Love, Dates, and Heartbreaks. Thanks for being with us today. We'll see you later.